Hi everyone, welcome back to Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Today I'm going to be trying a chapter of some thrillers that have been on my shelf for far too long. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name's Alice and I have way too many books. And in the interests of getting through some of those way too many books, I really do need to be looking at some of the books that have been around for a very long time. I was having a look at what I've been reading this year so far today, and it seems I've definitely been reading mainly books that I've picked up recently, and I've been ignoring my tin again. If you haven't seen my tin before, my TBR tin has got in it all of the books that I've had since 2010 and before. So there was about 40 books in here when we started with the tin. I don't often get actually time to draw out of the tin for my TBR for the month. I believe that nearly all of the books that I've pulled off the bookshelf just now are in the tin. And I mean, these books that are in the tin, I've owned them for more than 12 years, more than 13 years now, and I haven't got to them, so there must be something stopping me getting to these books. So what I would like to do today, and probably going into the rest of this week, I am going to try a chapter of some of these to see whether they need to stay or go. There's going to be maybe, I think, 3 outcomes today for these books. One, and I hope this is actually going to happen, is that I may want to unhaul the book and not read it beyond the first chapter. I tried this last year and I did manage to unhaul some books, and I'm hoping that will happen again, because I just, some of these books are really not calling to me. I just don't know whether they need to stay on my shelf anymore. Another thing that might happen is that I might definitely want to keep the book, but I'm definitely not in the mood for it now, in which case it will go back on the shelf, but I'm going to make a note of it so that I only have like a few months to try and read it. And the third thing is that I am looking for some books to read in the month of June. My TBR is finally not as busy with readathons. I really do want to get to some of my crime fiction and thrillers, because a lot of my giant TBR is crime and thrillers that I've owned for many years and that maybe I don't actually want to read anymore. So not all of these are crime and thrillers, but a lot of them are. The third thing that might happen is that I'm hoping to find some books that when I try the chapter of them, I really do want to read them, and I will put those ones on my TBR for June. These are the books that I'm planning to try a chapter of today. If you see any books in this video that you think I've made a mistake about, that maybe I say I'm going to get rid of, and you think that I should definitely give another try to, let me know in the comments. If you see something you think I should definitely read in June and prioritise, do let me know if you see any books you really like. The first thing that I picked off the shelf was The Good Guy by Dean Koontz. I have 3 books on my shelf by Dean Koontz. I think these were all actually my husband's books, and I've meant to read them for years and years and years, and I haven't read them. And this is one where the main character, Tim, it says, is enjoying a beer after work, and a stranger comes over to him, hands him an envelope full of cash and says, "You'll get the rest when she's gone." And the person then walks out of the bar. Tim realises that he is supposed to kill someone. He's been mistaken for somebody. I believe that's the premise. I really, really need to try a chapter or 2 of Dean Koontz to see if I really do need to keep the 3 that I've got. This one I've definitely shown in a video before. It might have been 2 years ago. I was going to read this in June as one of my oldest books, and this is The Business of Dying by Kernick. It's another one that I think actually I might have bought for my husband and he's probably read. But this one is about D.S. Dennis Milne, who's waiting on a cold November night to kill 3 unarmed men, and Milne earns money on the side punishing the bad guys, but he's actually been set up on this occasion. I have definitely read other Simon Kernick books. I think I've read Relentless, Severed maybe. I read a few of his. I used to really like them. I don't know if my taste has changed. I don't know why I never got to this one. Any of these that I say are probably my husband's. If I was to decide to unhaul them, they probably would stay on my husband's shelf. I will ask him if that happens. Number 3, I bought this in a set of random mixed thrillers, and it's Lynda Plante, Cold Shoulder. I don't think I've read Lynda Plante very extensively. I think I've tried to start this one before and I haven't got very far, but this one's about Lieutenant Lorraine Page, and I think her career has kind of gone off the rails, so it's a sort of off the rails career one. I'm really not sure that I have any desire to read it, so we'll try a couple of chapters of that and see what I think, and see if I still want to unhaul it after a couple of chapters. Another author who I've got a couple of books on my shelf, they're both my husband's, and it's an author that in theory I should really like, but I've never actually managed to get into. I think I may have read 1 or 2 books by him, and I'm not sure I particularly love his style, but I'm willing to try again. And I've picked up Lifeless by Mark Billingham. This has been hanging around a long time. It's about Detective Inspector Tom Thorne, who I think is one of Mark Billingham's main characters. I believe Lifeless is supposed to be one of the best in this series, but who knows. And the other one that I've got on the shelf sounds a bit more like a standalone thriller, so I'd like to try this one from the series and see if it's something I'm still interested in. We will see. This one I've also tried to start before. This is Crosscut by Meg Gardiner. I got to chapter 5 with this before. I'm not really sure what put me off or why I wasn't too interested. I haven't read a book by this author before, so if you have, let me know in the comments. And this is about a high school reunion, and somebody is killing off the people in Evan Delaney's graduating class, and Evan is trying to, I guess, investigate. I'm not sure if she's actually a detective or not. I think maybe not, but yeah, so this one has got a major serial killer on the loose sort of vibe. Class reunions can be a killer is the tagline there, so not sure why I didn't get into this the first time, but I'll give it another try and see if it needs another chance to stay on the TBR. This is another fairly chunky crime thriller. I bought this one because I enjoyed a different book by Minette Walters, which was The Ice House, which I think is her more famous book. This one's called Fox Evil, and it seems to be quite massive. It's like 550 pages, which I think is a bit excessive for a thriller, to be honest. An elderly woman is found dead in her garden, and the finger of suspicion points at her wealthy landowning husband. Coroner's inquest gives a verdict of natural causes, but the gossip refuses to go away. Don't know if I still want to read this one or not, but it looks like quite a chunky investment of time, so it would be good to have a flavour of it and see if it's something that I would like to give some time to in June. That's now 6 crime books, and I've got one more crime book, and this is the first in the Dave Robichaux series by James Lee Burke. I have actually read another one in this series, but it was a later book, and this one's the first one, The Neon Rain, and this was the winner of the CWA Macallan Gold Dagger at one point. Yeah, this was written in 1987. I got this in a library sale, so it really owes me nothing. I think it was probably 10 or 20 pence, and I would really like to get to this one. I'll be interested to see if it's something I would like to read in June, or if it's time for it to move on and give me space on my TBR. This is on a list of crime books that I would really like to read, so hopefully I will actually like this one. And the final one, I thought I had better try some more Anita Shreve. The only book I've DNF'd so far this year was Eden Close by Anita Shreve, and that was just because I didn't feel like I wanted to read books that are just okay. I haven't really been living up to that early promise of that first DNF, but I have 2 other Anita Shreves on my shelf, and I didn't want to just unhaul all of them, so I've picked up The Pilot's Wife and we'll give this one a try. I have read and liked, I think, 2 Anita Shreve books before, and this one is about a pilot's wife in New England who gets a knock on the door saying that her husband, the pilot, has died in a crash. But there are rumours that her husband led a secret life. Quite different from the other books in my pile here. So if I do try all of those, that is a bigger try a chapter than I've ever done before. That is 8 books. At this point in the video, please do pause it if you want to join in and let me know in the comments, what do you think I will keep and what do you think is leaving the TBR? We had The Business of Dying, Cold Shoulder, Lifeless, Crosscut, Fox Evil, The Good Guy, The Neon Rain and The Pilot's Wife. Let me know what you think I might end up keeping and what you think is leaving the house. Hopefully we can make a little bit of space on the giant TBR. Probably needed after all the book hauls. I'll let you know how I get on in another clip when I've read some chapters. Hello, I'm back again and I have actually finished trying all of the chapters. I meant to check in halfway through and let you know how I was getting on, but I ended up not filming yesterday, so I will give you the verdict on all of the books today. Out of the 8 books, well, I definitely want to unhaul 5 of them, which is brilliant. There is one that I kind of want to unhaul, but I think I'm going to give it one more try. So yeah, it's been very successful. But let us have a look at what's what. The first book I tried was Cold Shoulder by Lynda Plante, and I'm just not that interested in the content of this. It's about an alcoholic main character who basically seems to have ruined her police career. She's shot someone who didn't actually have a weapon and seems to have basically lost her job without much caring that has happened. And I'm just not really that interested. I can't bring myself to read like 460 odd pages of that. So yeah, just not interested, and that one is going to move on to a new owner. It's not sitting on my bookshelf waiting for me to never read it. So yeah, it's goodbye to this one. Secondly, I tried Crosscut by Meg Gardiner. I actually was looking through my old book journal for a different reason and found that I have actually not only tried to read this once, I've actually started it and not finished it twice. Twice it was on a list at the end of the year where I said books I started but didn't finish this year. So I've already had 2 attempts, and on my 3rd attempt I thought, I don't know why I've been keeping this for such a long time, because I don't really love the writing. Like, it's probably the sort of book that I could read when I needed a break from difficult books, but it's not really a topic that I want to read about. Like, I like serial killer books and this is clearly one of those. I wasn't really interested in the character again, and also there's a bit at the beginning with the serial killer and I got the impression from the description of them, and also I went onto Goodreads and looked at some reviews to see if what I was thinking was accurate, and I think that this has definitely got a problematic villain, and I don't want to read that. It doesn't much bother me to read slightly problematic older crime fiction, but actually don't want to read about what this book is driving at, I don't think. So it's had 3 chances, it is going. Don't know if I would actually try that author again. I would probably try Lynda Plante again if I came across a book of hers I wanted to read, but I don't know that I will try Meg Gardiner again. Maybe she is not for me. Next up, these 2 books. We have Lifeless by Billingham and we have The Business of Dying by Kernick. Now, years ago I made a list, and it was a list, I'm always making these lists. If I read books about books, I make lists of what I would like to read that was mentioned in the book about books. And some years ago now I read a book called The Rough Guide to Crime Fiction. I believe it's by Barry Forshaw, but I'll try and put a picture up. I made a list, quite a long list, of books that I wanted to read after reading The Rough Guide to Crime Fiction. And I have got through a few of them, and I have acquired a few of them to read at a later time. And actually it turns out that 4 of these 8 books I was trying are on that list. They have had slightly different fates with me. So both of these two actually belong to my husband, so they wouldn't necessarily be leaving the house if I did unhaul them. And both of them I thought were quite interesting premises, and they're both on obviously a list of books that I wanted to read. That we're talking a good 10, probably like 14 years. It's a long time. My taste has changed, but definitely The Business of Dying, really, really good opening. And there was also an interesting note from the author at the beginning. I always love to hear like anything behind why the author wrote something or how the book came to be. So that really intrigued me from the off. So I'm going to put this on my TBR for June. I would really like to get through lots of books from my shelves in June. I'd really like to go on like a crime thriller reading kick, as I've been reading so much literary fiction lately. June might be a bit more of a crimey, thrillery month, and this is definitely one that I'm going to persevere with and pick up. So this one is staying. I don't love Mark Billingham's style as much, but this one is also going to stay because I'm interested enough in the premise. It sounds quite interesting, so I'm going to give this one a chance as well. I'm going to keep it. It's going to get a chance in June to impress me. So these two are sticking around for June at the least. If I don't get to these in June, I might give myself a couple more months to try them and then think about unhauling them again. Next, I tried Fox Evil by Minette Walters, and actually, when I looked, this is also on the list from the crime fiction book, but I put 4 Minette Walters books on there, one of which I've read, which was The Ice House, which I enjoyed. As I said in the introduction, this is a very chunky one for like a crime thriller, and it opens with like some pretty horrible animal cruelty, and I don't want to read about that. If the rest of the book is going to be about that, I don't really want that. There's also like sort of newspaper stories in this, and those are in the tiniest print you've ever seen. So I'm not very interested in that style. I think that in all likelihood I could try a different Minette Walters if I decided to go back to her writing, but no. I don't really want to read a book that opens with animal cruelty in case the whole thing is like that, and I'm not that interested in the premise of this one, so I'm going to unhaul that one as well. Next, I tried The Good Guy by Dean Koontz. I'm not going to unhaul all of my Dean Koontz on the strength of this one, but I read the opening sort of chapter, I skimmed a bit more. I'm not really interested in the character this is about, I'm not really interested in the premise. Dean Koontz didn't really sell it to me in the first chapter. To be honest, I didn't really like the writing style, so I don't know if that means that the other 2 Dean Koontz on my shelf are going to go as well. This is staying in the house on my husband's shelf, as I believe it belonged to him, and I've checked with him, he would like to keep it, but it is being unhauled from the giant TBR. That's because I'm just not that interested in it, to be honest. Next up, I tried the only sort of straightforward fiction / maybe literary fiction on the list, and that's The Pilot's Wife by Anita Shreve. You may know if you've been around for a while that I had 3 Anita Shreve books on my shelf. None of these cost me a penny. I acquired these when my mum was getting rid of her Anita Shreve collection, and I think I chose the 3 that I chose because they were the 3 that sounded really interesting to me. And I think that in the past I've read 2 Anita Shreves. One's The Weight of Water, which I really, really loved. I think I read one called Resistance, which I also loved, but this one just wasn't really appealing to me. At the beginning of the year, I tried to read Eden Close, and I decided that it was probably the sort of book that I would carry on reading and wouldn't DNF because there was nothing not to like about it, but it also wasn't super interesting, and I don't really want to read books that are not going to interest me and give me enjoyment while I'm reading them. So life's too short, there's too many books. The final Anita Shreve that I've got on my shelf is the one that I think I would probably most enjoy. This one was fine. I really, really liked Anita Shreve's writing style in the opening chapter or part of a chapter, but I'm not really caring about the topic, and I feel like this is a theme that has been done by many, many authors, and I have a similar premised book on my shelf by Nikki French, which I definitely want to read, and I just don't think that I need to read this one. I was a bit torn about this one, but I don't think it's for me, unfortunately. So it hasn't particularly hooked me, although I do like Anita Shreve's writing style. So I think I'll stick with the other one I've got on my shelf. If I did get back into Anita Shreve at a later date and decided to read this, I'd probably get it from the library. And also, the final thing to say about this is I think it's actually potentially part of a series. Anita Shreve wrote a very famous book called Fortune's Rocks, and I didn't ever read that one, and I didn't particularly have any inclination to do so. And on Goodreads it says that this is in the Fortune's Rocks series book 4. Don't know if that is actually a series or if it just has some characters in common. I know Anita Shreve has written like different books that have different parts that sort of interlink, but I haven't read any of the books in the series, so I'm not going to see the links, and I'm not really that bothered. So this is leaving as well. Pretty impressive amount of books that are leaving. Now, the final book is a bit of a... This is the one I'm a little bit torn about. So this was also on the list of books that I wanted to read from the Rough Guide to Crime Fiction. I think this series is quite highly thought of. It's the Dave Robichaux series by James Lee Burke. This is the first book in the series, The Neon Rain. Now, I think I already said in the earlier part of the video, I read another one of these, which was Black Cherry Blues, and I thought the character was fine. It wasn't a book that absolutely blew me away. And when I was reading the first chapter of this, I was just not super interested, but I do want to give this another chance. It was on my 23 crime books I wanted to read in 2023, so I'm going to give this a try in June. I'm not sure that I'm going to get on with this series or that it's a series I particularly want to read more of, but I may read this one. If I don't get to it and I haven't got to this by the end of the year, I think it seriously does need to be unhauled. That was all of the books that I tried. We will see if there is more unhauling. I will let you know in my wrap up of the month when the numbers change. So I think it's pretty good that we've got 5 out of 8 are leaving the giant TBR. That's an amazing success for the TBR. If you are new here, I am trying to reduce my giant physical TBR, and I have been for some time, but my aim really isn't to get the TBR to nothing. I don't think that will ever happen. I will be quite happy if I get my TBR to, sounds terrible, but I don't read ebooks, so I don't have a Kindle TBR. I have some audiobooks, so I do have a little bit of an audiobook TBR, but this is really kind of it. So I would be quite happy if my physical TBR came down to around about the 100 mark and could keep stable at that sort of point. It's nowhere near there yet, but my aim isn't really to get no books on the TBR. I like having books around with a lot of selection to read. I like the fact that I've collected some books for a series that I will definitely get to at some point. And as with the crime books, I have bought them when I've seen them because I knew they were on like a mental TBR. I will get to them at some point, but other books have definitely been sitting on my TBR for years, and I think the important thing for the reduction of my TBR is that my TBR starts to reflect more what my reading tastes are now, not what my reading tastes were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. These 5 are going, and I'm pleased with that result. Anyway, let me know in the comments, did you get any of those right? Did you think I would unhaul that many? How are you getting on with your reading? Do you have any books you think you might try a chapter of? Do you think I should persevere with any of these? If you would like to see more try chapters, do let me know in the comments. I think I might do another one next month. What I might do is insert some footage here of the TBR shelves, and I would love to hear from you if there's something you think that I should try to read in June, or even just try a chapter of in June. So yeah, let me know in the comments when you've seen the TBR what you would like to see me trying in the month of June when my reading is a little bit freer at the moment. That's all from me today. If you have enjoyed this try chapter, please do give it a like. Please do consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do hope to see you all again soon for another video all about books here on Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Bye for now.